folks, Dr. Rob Barrington here with some more nutrition advice. I haven't done a video for a while, so I thought I would update the channel. And what I wanted to do is a quick video about vegan diets. Now, the reason I wanted to do a video on vegan diets is because there are a lot of celebrities at the moment. There's a lot of advocating switching to a vegan diet. There's a lot of information that's being put out there advocating how great vegan diets are. And I just wanted to counteract some of what I believe to be propaganda about vegan diets. And I just wanted to discuss some of the facts about why you have to be careful if you do adopt a vegan diet. Now, I'm not against vegan diets. I don't think they are the healthiest way to eat. I think humans are naturally omnivorous and they should be eating a mixture of meat and plants. I advocate a plant-based diet, but I always suggest that there should be meat in the diet. Now, some people don't want to eat meat for moral reasons, and I have no objection for that. And vegetarian diets can actually be quite healthy. However, vegan diets are a more extreme version of vegetarian diet, and I think they have inherent problems with them. And you have to be very, very careful. You have to eat extremely carefully if you're going to be a vegan and you're going to be healthy. I wanted to cover three main aspects of vegan diets which I think are often lacking, and there's areas that need to be particularly addressed if you're going to adopt a vegan diet. The first one is the iron content of the diet. The second one is the protein quality, and the third one is the essential fatty acid content. If we start with iron, iron is the most common nutritional deficiency in the world. Many people in the West have an iron deficiency, and it's very common amongst women. The problem with iron deficiency is it's incredibly difficult to reverse once you have it. So once you have iron deficient anemia, it takes a lot of effort to get rid of it and reverse it and go back to a point of health. And what you tend to find is that those people that have iron deficient anemia tend to be on the borderline of anemia constantly, and they will go into anemia and then come slightly out but then go back into it. And that's the problem. It tends to be a chronic problem. It tends to last, and even those people that seek medical attention, they tend to be given supplements. Those supplements tend to be poorly absorbed forms of iron, and they don't tend to reverse the deficiency sufficiently. The best way to obtain iron in the diet is through the eating of red meat. Red meat contains heme iron, which is highly absorbable. You only need to eat red meat a couple of times a week in order to be able to take in enough iron to prevent you getting iron deficient anemia. Those people who are vegetarian and don't eat red meat, they have a problem because plant foods contain iron. In fact, some plant foods are quite high in iron, but the iron is not absorbable. It's a non-heme version of iron. It's actually the reason it's not absorbable is because plants actually sequester some of this iron away and deliberately make the iron unavailable to their own tissues because it can be a pro-oxidant. So it tends to be stored in forms that are poorly absorbed, and also the form of iron is not well absorbed from the small intestine because of the chemistry of the way it interacts with our stomach acid, whereas heme iron reacts in a way that makes it more absorbable when it reaches the small intestine. So plant iron is not absorbable. Vegans eating all plant foods have an even extreme version of the vegetarian diet, and I suggest that most vegans, unless they pay particular attention to their iron status, would be either have iron deficient anemia or would be on the borderline. How do you get around this? Well, you could take an iron supplement, but you need to take a very absorbable form of iron, so something like an iron chelate, something that's a form of iron that's organically bound. And that's really all you can do, because if you eat plant foods, there's no real absorption at high levels, and therefore if you're losing a lot of iron, obviously females lose iron through their every month through menstruation. If you're an athlete, you will use up your iron more quickly, so female athletes are particularly prone to iron deficient anemia. And therefore, it's very difficult to actually, if you don't eat red meat, to actually maintain your iron levels. But taking an iron supplement is one way to do that. But just be wary that if you decide to adopt a vegetarian or a vegan diet, and you don't pay particular attention to your iron intake, particularly through maintaining your iron intake, possibly through a supplement, you are going to run the risk of developing iron deficient anemia, and that will change your mental function, it will change your mood, and it will change your energy levels, because iron is involved in all of those physiological processes. The second problem that you will possibly encounter if you decide to take a route into a vegan diet is that the level of protein quality that you have in your diet will fall dramatically. Plants are a good plants are a good source of protein, but the protein quality is low. Now, the reason the protein quality is low is because plants don't contain all of the essential amino acids we need in the correct ratio in order to provide those amino acids for growth and repair. Animal proteins are complete proteins because they contain all of the essential amino acids we need in the correct ratios for growth and repair. So you can eat animal protein and you're obtaining high quality, bioavailable protein of a good quality that will provide all of the amino acids that you need, all of the essential amino acids that you need for the growth and repair of your tissues. If you're not careful when you're eating a vegan diet, you may not obtain all of those essential amino acids. Now, you can combine different plants because certain plants are deficient in one group of amino acids, and another group of plants might be deficient in another group of amino acids. So you can combine plant foods to create whole proteins, but the protein is still not as absorbable as it would be as if it was with in animal tissue. There's many different ways of measuring the bioavailability of protein. There are different protein bioavailability scales, and consistently animal protein outperforms vegetable protein. So again, looking at the protein content of a vegetable is not enough to say that you're getting that amount of protein. You have to understand that that protein won't contain all of the essential amino acids, and therefore it is limited in its ability to aid in the growth and repair of your tissues, which is what the protein will be used for. And obviously, if it's limited in its ability to maintain growth and repair, it will also hamper your immune system, because your immune system has a number of cells that turn over readily. Those cells need to be regenerated, and high protein diets will help with your immune system because they will give the required nutrients to your immunity. Having a low bioavailability protein through eating possibly the wrong vegetables in the wrong ratios can cause that process to break down, and you can actually decrease your immunity. Chronically, obviously, that can leave you open to the development of particular diseases. So that's why if you are going to take a vegan diet, I would suggest that you research and look into the ways to correctly combine vegetables in order to be able to provide complete proteins. And I would make sure that your protein levels, your protein intake are high, particularly if you are engaged in physical activity, or your job requires it, or you have a pastime in physical activity such as exercise, because you will need more protein, because you will have more need for repair and turnover of tissues, particularly muscle tissue. And if you have a low protein intake, that can actually be detrimental to your health overall. So that's the reason why you need to look after your protein intake. Now, the last factor that I would like to look at is the essential fatty acids. Now, the reason I'd like to look at essential fatty acids again is because there's a bit of a paradox. Now, plant foods are a very good source of alpha-linolenic acid, which is the omega-3 fatty acid, and they're a very good source of linoleic acid, which is the omega-6 fatty acid. Now, they're the two essential fatty acids. So you would have thought that if you take a predominantly plant-based diet, i.e. a vegan diet, you would be consuming enough of the essential fatty acids. And that is true, but what you have to take into account is that alpha-linolenic acid is not well metabolized in most people. Humans have a deficiency of the metabolizing enzyme that is required to convert the alpha-linolenic acid to an active form, which can be then used to synthesize particular hormones in cells. Now, these hormones, if you're taking in the correct amount of the essential fatty acids, these hormones, icosanoids, are actually they regulate cell inflammation as well as other things, but the main thing they do is they regulate cell inflammation in the inflammatory pathways. If you have an imbalance of your omega-3 to omega-6, fatty acid intake, or if the intake is incorrect, you can actually have a pro-inflammatory condition that causes the development of disease, and that disease can be numerous. Anything to be that involves inflammation, which can be mental health, it can be cardiovascular disease, cancer, it can be insulin resistance, diabetes, weight gain. They're all related to that, those fatty acids. Now, alpha-linolenic acid, like I say, is in plants, but it's not well converted into the active form, icosapentaenoic acid, which is required to produce these icosanoids. People that eat meat, the omnivores, can eat fish. Now, fish is a very good source of icosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoic acid, and those two essential fatty acids are you've got to think of them as the activated form of the omega-3 fatty acids. If you take in and you eat fish regularly, you will probably be, and I'm talking about fatty fish, so tuna, trout, salmon, anything that's a cold water fatty fish will contain icosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoic acid. And those two activated fatty acids are much more readily utilized by cells in order to have this anti-inflammatory effect. The alpha-linolenic acid in the diet in plants can be utilized by some people, but it's a poor form generally of the omega-3 fats. Now, the way to get around this is to look for a source of the activated essential fats in plants. Now, unfortunately, that is very limited because the activated forms are found in animals, because they're activating the form, because they're consuming the original essential fatty acids like alpha-linolenic acid. So the fish will consume algae, and that algae is producing alpha-linolenic acid, and that alpha-linolenic acid can then be passed on to the fish. Now, algae will also produce other metabolites of alpha-linolenic acid. So they also, for example, produce docosahexaenoic acid, which also then accumulates in the fish. Now, if you're a meat eater, you can consume the fish and you can directly take the icosapentaenoic and docosahexaenoic acids. That's fine. If you're a vegan, you don't have that option. You can't take fish oil capsules because that obviously would be consuming an animal product. But what you can do is you can consume the algae that actually creates the forms of the omega-3s that are consumed by the fish. So the algae will actually produce from alpha-linolenic acid through a series of metabolic pathways. They will produce the icosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoic acid. That's consumed by the fish, which accumulates in the fish. The meat eaters can eat that. The vegetarians and the vegans can go directly to the algae and they can consume the docosahexaenoic acid and small amounts of icosapentaenoic, but mainly docosahexaenoic acid from the algae directly. So that is the best form that I've come across for vegans and vegetarians in order to obtain their essential fatty acids. If you actually analyse the diets of vegetarians and vegans, on paper their omega-3 intake should be good. Green leafy vegetables are a good source of alpha-linolenic acid, and you can on paper you can calculate that the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio through a vegetarian or vegan diet could be fulfilled. The trouble is, like I say, many people have this nutritional this biochemical deficiency in the enzyme. It's a genetic defect, which means that alpha-linolenic acid can't be converted into the active form. The solution is to go directly to algae, take that as a supplement, and that will provide you with the docosahexaenoic acid, which can then be converted into these important anti-inflammatory metabolites. So that's really the crux of veganism, of where I see it. They're the three mistakes that people make when they switch to a vegan diet. If you don't address those three simple components of your diet with a vegan diet, unfortunately vegan diets are quite unhealthy. It's a very fine line when you consume a vegan diet between being healthy and being unhealthy. Vegans that are healthy tend to be very proactive and very interested in their nutrition, and they tend to go out of their way to find sources of food that will provide them with the nutrition. Simply cutting meat out of your diet and animal products out of your diet is not the way to become a healthy vegan. And I see a lot of celebrities and I see a lot of information on the internet where there is an encouragement to stop eating meat. There is an encouragement to allow you to become, to encourage you to become a vegan, but they don't give you the necessary nutritional information to be a healthy vegan. I'm not saying that vegans are unhealthy. Some can maintain their health if they're very clever about their nutrition. Vegetarians, obviously, it depends what type of vegetarian you are. Some vegetarians can, for example, drink milk, or they'll eat dairy products. That adds a different component to it, because dairy products contain nutrients that are useful, and therefore those examples would have to be taken in isolation and discussed. But really, what I'm talking about is those people that decide to remove all animal products from their diet. If you're thinking about it from a moral perspective, don't forget to think about it also from a nutritional perspective. It's your health, and once you've lost it, it's very difficult to get back. I would also recommend that if you're going to become a vegan, that you work with somebody, a nutritionist who knows what they're doing. And I would suggest that you would need, at least to start with, until you know how your body's going to react, I would say that you would need some biochemical tests in order to understand how your nutrition was changing. So you would certainly measure your iron levels over time to see if you were maintaining them at a correct level. You might want to measure your vitamin D levels. Vitamin D, for example, is found mainly, the vitamin D that humans obtain from their diet is found certainly mainly in animal products. So you would have to, during the winter, you would have to come up with a solution to help maintain your vitamin D levels. You'd maybe have to take supplements, or you'd have to look for foods such as mushrooms that might contain high levels of vitamin D. And really, working with a nutritionist and understanding how your body reacts to it is really going to be the best way. Those people that are experienced vegans also can provide information, but be very wary of those people who are advocating a vegan diet for purposes other than your own benefit, or, for example, your own health. Much of the information could be deemed to be propaganda, and therefore it's a case of caveat emptor, and you have to take do your own research and take your chances if you're going to follow that advice. So I hope that the information in this video was useful. As always, eat well, stay healthy, and protect yourself, and I will see you soon for another video. Take care.